Is this what underlies so many people's desire for like peace in their communications with others and peace on an internet forum or peace in their family or peace in their own head or just peace in general?
Yes, of course. Of course. Your desire for peace inside and outside of yourself externally can cause you to make many compromises, right? And what's going to protect you is to never compromise the truth. Can you see what's going to protect you? So let's list that as one of the protections. Remember I said I was going to list for you ways that you can protect yourself against this kind of attack. One way is never compromise truth. No matter how terrified you are about doing the opposite thing. Now, if that happens inside of you, where you get to a point where you never compromise truth no matter what happens, can a spirit hook into you compromising truth to suit another emotion inside of yourself? He can't. So let's say you're terrified. I'm terrified about speaking the truth. If I never compromise the truth, I will allow myself to be terrified and be even shaking and still say the truth. You get me? But if I'm not in that place, now a spirit can cause, I've got a hook into that person. What's the hook? Under certain circumstances, that person's never going to tell the truth. Let's try to attempt to create those circumstances so they never get to tell the truth. If you get to a place where you release all of that emotionally, you'll get closer to God. They don't want you closer to God. What they want you to do is in this other place. All right? If we went across to...
AJ, something I've been having lately is just every once in a while I'll be doing something and then a thought will come in that will be not harmony with truth, and I identify it and I go, hello, how are you? Bye. That's about as much as, but I just say no because I identify it as I'm not in harmony with truth.
The problem though that we have is that there are many thoughts, because of our addictions, there are many thoughts that we believe are harmonious with truth that are not. And that's our biggest point of vulnerability. Just for example, many of us have this belief that love can expect yourself to be treated well. We have this belief inside of us, right? I expect a person who loves me to treat me well. Now, I've said in the past that an expectation is unloving. So actually me telling myself that I can expect others to treat me lovingly is an untruth, right? That I believe to be true. Now a spirit can easily hook into that one. All they do is they get somebody to treat me not very well, or not even treat me well or not well. In other words, ignore me. So how's that happen? I'll be walking down the street, AJ's on the opposite side of the street, and he doesn't even notice I'm there. And I look at him and he seemed to look straight past me. How did that happen? He's just ignoring me. He doesn't love me. He's just ignoring me. And straight away, thoughts drop in, bang, 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 bang. Before you know it, I'm in a rage with the person across the street who probably never even saw me. And if it was me without my glasses on, I probably, you know what I mean? I might have looked straight at you and never saw you. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But we don't consider those things, of course, because we've got this connection into that emotion and bang, before we know it. And that's the issue that we face, is that many of the belief systems that we have and many of the actions we take are unloving, and we think they're loving. And the spirits know they're not loving, and they can easily manipulate and control that. So this is where, when I say never compromise truth, let's just put in brackets there, and perhaps it shouldn't be in brackets, but let's just put in brackets divine truth. In other words, never compromise the truth from God's perspective. What would God want me to do in this situation? Now, a lot of people say to me, I don't know what God wants. And to be frank with you, that's often crap, right? Often you do know what is the loving thing to do in any circumstance or situation. And we often make a purposeful choice not to do it because of some compromise that we're making inside of ourselves emotionally. That's why we do that. So often we finish up compromising the truth. Now, in Paul's words in the Bible that I was talking, in the scriptures that I was talking about, he called it the loins girded with truth. That's what he called it. Why do you think he called it the loins girded with truth? It's interesting, associating truth with this part of our body, isn't it? And obviously, one of the biggest areas where we're untruthful with ourselves is regard to our sexual response and sexuality. And it's also one of the biggest areas that we can be influenced in by spirits in a negative way. So it's just something to bear in mind. If we go to Jen and then back to...
Thanks, AJ. I have two questions.
Yep.
Can a spirit tell you, manipulate you with truth, tell you truths, like 9 truths, and then the 10th to lead you along a way, and then 10th truth is like, the icing on the cake that's totally false?
Of course.
Can they manipulate you with truth?
Of course. Just like many people on earth do they not? Like many people on earth are masters at distorting the truth to their own benefit. Right? Where you get a whole series of things told to you and it all seems true. Many of you have been actually victims of this if you've looked at the internet forums discussing myself and my life and what I've said. Right? Because often there's very, very large gaps missed out of interactions and emotions and other things that have gone on in those persons. These very, very large gaps missed out. Because what we're so used to doing is just presenting just a little bit of truth there, a little bit of truth there, and then we start creating in the other person's mind that actually we're telling all the truth, when in reality we've left out these huge gaps that we can now use to manipulate a person if they trust us. Right? And this is the thing, is at some point we're going to have to learn to never compromise the truth, but the majority of us on this planet have learnt from the time we are little children to compromise truth. Have we not? Let's be honest. Like, did you do that or not? How many of us have had that happen to you? Where you've been yelled at, asking a question to tell you the truth. Like, you've got this great big person who's like 3 times, 4 times the size of you, going over you, yelling at you to tell them the truth. What would you do? Like, under those circumstances, it's very unlikely you're going to tell them the truth, isn't it? Particularly if you know the truth's just going to make them even more angry and upset. Wow, of course you wouldn't. You see, and this is why we're so easily lied to and so easily lie as a result of that, because we're so afraid. We are petrified of truth, to be frank, on the planet. We don't want to hear the truth. How many times have you heard me speak the truth to someone and straight away they're angry with me for the next 10 weeks? Like, you've seen it happen all the time, right? How many people leave, like, we've had thousands of people come to these sessions. But literally thousands of them are not coming anymore. Why is that? Because a lot of times they don't want to hear the truth. They're okay with external truth, but even then a lot of times we're not, are we? Like, I've talked about the truth of abortion. Now that's really confronting, isn't it? Very confronting. If I don't want to face the emotion of that, I'm going to be so confronted of that. Now, it's not a judgment, it's just a truth. But we often see truth and judgment in exactly the same place, at exactly the same time. And so what we finish up doing is we think, oh, AJ's judging me again. I'm sick of being judged all the time. And rather than dealing with the emotions, we go off because we're being judged again. And we're so used to doing that so that we can get away from the truth. Did I do it or not? Right? We do this all the time. And so many times we actually inhibit our own progress because of truth. So yes, a spirit can manipulate the truth just like any person here on the earth can manipulate the truth for you. So, one of the easiest ways to manipulate a person who's a mediumistic person on the divine love path? All I've got to do as a spirit is this. All I've got to do is go to any book that talks about the divine love path, all the Paget messages. I pick up the book by the way, I can do this as a spirit. I can read through that entire book in a matter of seconds. Right? So I go, okay, Nina loves the divine truth. Nina's also a medium. So she's talking to spirits who she believes are on the divine truth path, right? On the divine love path. I'm a nasty spirit. I can see some emotions in Nina that she wants to do this and wants to do that. She's got some unhealed things here and there. All I need to do now is get this book, read it, look at all the terminology. Oh yeah, terminology is quite easy to understand. Is it not? How many of you understand what a bit is, or a byte is, or a processor, or all those these are all computer terms, are they not, that you've learnt? And you can now converse. How many of you actually know what one is and have seen one? Very few, right? Very few of you. But you think you know what it is. And because we've just learnt the terms, right? We've just learnt the terminology. We fit in with, okay, so I'm a spirit, divine love path. Oh, all the people here in divine love path. Quite a few here who are developing their mediumship now, who are working their way through. Oh, it's quite easy. This is going to be easy. All I do is I read all the material. Right, now I'm totally versed on the divine love path from an intellectual point. I might be in the hells, right? But I know what to say. And all I need to do is what? Say, oh, Nina, you're doing so well on the divine love path. Isn't it lovely? I start channeling all this other information. Nina's starting to feel really good. Wow, I was really thinking I was doing bad, but I'm doing quite good, obviously, now. The spirits are telling me, isn't this wonderful? And I get some more stuff, and oh, isn't it wonderful? Yeah, this is really good. This is really good channeling. Hey, it's really awesome. And I'm channeling a first sphere spirit who has nothing to do with the divine love path, and all they're doing is trying to connect to me so that they can manipulate some of my other emotions. Right? And if I can't feel the spirit, how am I going to know? I'm not going to know. So that spirit can come along and say, all right, no. So after about 3 or 4 months, oh, you're listening to AJ. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, she's got some man issues as well. Okay, we can easily now influence Nina into dealing with some of her man issues by getting angry with AJ, right? And all AJ's got to just innocently say is drop a bit of truth here and there. And bang, the spirit says, see, he's out of harmony with divine love, And the spirit's starting to go now at Nina about AJ being out of harmony with divine love. You can't trust him, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. By the way, would any divine love spirit start saying these kind of things to you? Probably not, eh? But by now we're so hooked, right, into the interaction with them that we don't think of that, right? And we're in the emotion of anger too, inside of ourselves, towards the person. So that's very, very hard for me now to get out of that. And so now what's happening? Now what's happening is I'm being influenced off the path that I think I'm following by my connection with the spirits through some unhealed emotions. That's what's happening. This happens all the time on earth. And the reason why it happens is, as I said at the beginning, you can't see who you're talking to. You can only feel who you're talking to. And if the feelings of who you're talking to match your own feelings very closely, you're going to think it's quite good, right? And if those feelings happen to be rage towards men, rage towards women, anger towards God, whatever other emotions that are unhealed inside of you, you're obviously going to be very open to influence. And it's so easy to influence you. To be frank with you, if I wanted to influence you, it would be so easy to influence you. Because the more somebody knows about your emotional condition and can feel from you about your emotional condition, if they have a malevolent attitude towards you, an attitude where they want to harm you, they can very easily influence you. The fortunate thing for you, in many cases, is that the spirits who are in the position where they do understand you emotionally are also in a position of love, and they don't want to harm you with it. The spirits who want to harm you, all they do is they look at your body and they see the different colours. A lot of times not even understanding what they are, but they know the colour that attracts their colour to them. Remember, everything from a metaphysical point of view is like a pipe that connects you with them. And so they feel this connection like a pipe between you and this spirit. And they can see that pipe. You can't, they can. They know that they have a connection with you that they can influence. and they don't care how they influence it. Now, some of them are more intelligent than others, and so therefore they use cleverer ways to do it. Some are not quite that clever or are quite basic in terms of their emotion. They use the fist, right, and try to pummel you into submission. If that doesn't work, they leave. It just depends on their personality is what they'll do. Now, I'm not saying all of this to frighten you. I'm saying all this to actually encourage you to see how easy it is to be influenced by others if you decide to hook into them emotionally. And what I would like to encourage you to do instead of that, hooking into them emotionally I mean, is to start looking at some areas where you can protect yourself from hooking into other people emotionally when you know they're in a condition that is not harmonious with love. Right? Now, if you've got an angry person on the internet saying all these things about me, for example, saying all these things to you on the internet about me, the fact that they're angry is telling you what? Well, they obviously have got a lot of fear, and then there's also a lot of grief, is there not? So there's anger, fear, grief. Now, if they're angry with me, what have I said about anger? Anger is the guide to dealing with deeper emotions. Haven't we said that? So if you know they're angry, if you're listening to them in their anger and believing them, then all of a sudden you're now in a place where you're vulnerable. That's totally different than listening to a calmer person who's not in a state of anger. But how do you tell the difference? Well, it's quite obvious with anger, not quite obvious with other emotions. Right? So often what happens is I'm in a state of doubt, for example, personally. And so what happens is I'm now going to attract a whole group of people who are also in doubt into my life, and I'm going to attract a group of spirits who want to influence my doubt into my life. Now, how do I deal with my doubt? I have to process it emotionally. I've got to go, all right, I'm going to go full disbelief and see how that works for a while. Or I go into full belief and trust and see how that works for a while. But don't stay in the place of doubt, because in the place of doubt, you are heavily manipulated by anybody around you who just triggers your doubt. Do you see what I'm saying? So if I'm talking about the law of attraction and you doubt the law of attraction exists, don't stay in that place. Either totally disbelieve me completely and try that on for size and see how that garment fits you for a while, right? Or believe me for a month and see how it works. Do one or the other. Does that make sense? But in the place of doubt, you can actually stay in that place for 25 years and you'll pass and you'll go, oh boy, I wish I didn't doubt that all that time without knowing what the truth was. You can resolve all of these issues quite easily. But if you're willing to actually be influenced by the spirits because of the holes that are there, and let's admit to ourselves we all have holes there still, right? So we're going to have some ways in which we can be manipulated by those holes. So if we're going to be manipulated by those holes for the rest of our life, you can be processing what you think is emotion that's causal in it at all. It won't be causal emotion at all, but instead will just be emotions of spirits who are just connecting you one after another, after another, after another, influencing your entire process. And the only time you'll notice that that changes is when you pass and all of a sudden you disconnect from them all. And now they're not around you anymore. So now they can't influence you anymore, and now you know what was your own thought and what was somebody else's. Right? It's better to know before.